What's up, swashbucklers? It's your host, Phil. Happy New Year. Our sponsor for today's show is the author S.R. Staley, who has written the Pirate of Panther Bay book series. That's two books, The Pirate of Panther Bay and Tortuga Bay. It's about a slave girl, Isabella, who escapes the bonds of slavery and becomes the captain of a 22-gun pirate ship. A lady captain, you guys. It's an awesome story, full of action. Great stories, great characters. You definitely need to get it. And the way you can get it is you go to underthecrossbones.com/Panther. That'll take you to S.R. Staley's author page on Amazon where you can see all the books that he's written. Plus, you help the show because I get a little cut of that sale when you buy The Pirate of Panther Bay. And if you'd like to sponsor the show, it's very easy. It's very cheap. Go to underthecrossbones.com/support for information. Okay, raise the sails. Turn it up, swashbucklers. You're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 22. I'm Phil Johnson, your host. Hey, here's a little background information that happens every time I record one of these. I always start the show and I go, turn it up, swashbucklers, and then I recite the episode number, and then I'm not sure if I have the right episode number, and I have to stop my recorder and go to my own website and see how many episodes I've put out, and then I record it all again with the right episode. So, hey, there's my workflow. That sounds efficient, doesn't it? Look, today on the show, this is the first show of the year. Happy New Year, too. Happy 2016. I've got not one, but two fantastic interviews for you today. 2 interviews, if you're a kid my age. Anyway, the first interview you're going to hear today, I've been waiting to play this one for a long time. This is an interview with Ray Stevenson, the actor, who is this season playing Blackbeard on Black Sails on the Starz network. If you are listening to this, chances are you know Black Sails and watch it religiously like I do. So we're going to have a great interview with Ray Stevenson. I actually recorded it in like early December or something like that, but they wouldn't let me play it until now because the new episode comes out January 23rd. The new season of Black Sails starts when we finally get some Blackbeardy action, and it's going to be super great, and Ray's a great guy. You're going to dig that interview. Also today on the show, I have an interview with the only other pirate podcaster in existence, Craig Buddy of the History of Pirates podcast. And when I started digging around to see if there were any pirate podcasts out there, there were none. There was not a single one out there. Not that was still going anywhere. There was a couple that were defaulted and whatever. But I put this project on the back burner for a while. And when I came back, Craig was there. And he was podcasting about pirates. But he does a different kind of show. I do interviews and things. He actually does history. He's going through the entire history of piracy. So his is going to be a long, long show. So anyway, we're going to talk to Craig. That's also a fantastic interview, and it's going to be so much fun. We'll get to the Ray Stevens stuff. Ray Stevens, you might have seen it. He was in the Divergent movies. He was in the Thor movies. He did a bunch of episodes of Dexter. If you watch that TV show, this is going to be such a good episode. I'm really excited about this. And, of course, we got music, we got comedy. I'll tell you about those coming up. If you want to get all the show notes for this show, go to underthecrossbones.com/022. That's episode number 22. If you want to help the show, if you're liking the show, if you're new, welcome. Hey, welcome to wherever you are starting your year right by doing this, by listening to some good pirate talk. If you like the show and you want to help support, go to underthecrossbones.com/support. And there you can just give a straight up donation, which is cool. You can click on the Amazon banner, which helps because I get a little cut of that when you buy something, like if you buy a book or if you buy a swimming pool, I get a little cut of that. And that's pretty awesome too. And or you can sponsor the show, and that's very cheap and easy to do, just like S.R. Staley did today. And you can find his books, of course, at underthecrossbones.com/Panther. Look, if you want a free book, hey, would you like a free book? Would you like a free book? I have a free ebook for you of Alexander Exquemelin's. That's such a hard name to say. Alexander Exquemelin's book, The Pirates of Panama, which is a seminal, important pirate book from way back in the actual days of pirates. And to get that, you can either go to the website, and there's a place where you can get it there. You just put in your email address. Or if you're out and you're mobile, you're driving, you're jogging, you're working, you're doing whatever, just use your phone, use your phony thing, and text the word pirate plus your email address, pirate space space. I don't know why that came out like that. Just text pirate space your email address to 94253, and I will send you a link to download The Pirates of Panama by Alexander Esquemelin. Such a fun name to say. So I hope your new year is going well. Mine's been interesting so far, and we're only 5 days in. I am doing some shows this month, but they're not exactly the shows I had planned on them being. One of the clubs I was supposed to play this month has gone out of business, which is always a drag because that screws up everything else on the tour. But here's where I am going to be this month. Friday, January the 17th, I'll be at the Washington Inn Hotel in Oakland, California. And this is sort of an experimental show where you get to vote. Like, comics are going to go up and do like 5 minutes at a time, and then there's like an elimination process, and I don't even know if there's a prize. We're just having fun, and you get to come out and pick who's the funniest. So that's Friday the 17th, Washington Inn Hotel in Oakland, California. On Saturday, January the 16th, I will be headlining the Arena Theater in Point Arena, California, and that is going to be a super fantastic show. If you're in the area, get tickets soon because I hear that one sells out, and it certainly will soon because I'm going to be there. Hey, no, anyway, and then possibly, I don't know if these are going to happen yet. Friday and Saturday, January the 22nd and 23rd, I'm supposed to be at Snickers in Fort Wayne, Indiana. However, like I said, the club I was playing the following weekend out of business, which screws up my trip and makes it way not profitable. So I'm waiting to hear back. May or may not be at Snickers, but we'll find out. We'll know by next week. So that's all good. How was your New Year's? Did you have a good New Year's? I had a great New Year's. I played a show at the Marin Showcase Theater here in Northern California. That was super fun. Sold out, 300 people. We did like a 2.5-hour show, and it was just great. And then I went on my way home and stopped at Krispy Kreme and ate 4 donuts by myself in my car because that is that's my tradition every year after my last show of the year. Sometimes that's New Year's Eve, sometimes it's earlier in December. But after my last show of the year, I always, for some reason, am driving past a Krispy Kreme. And I will stop at that Krispy Kreme, and I will order 4 to 6 donuts, maybe more, and take them home. But usually 4 to 6 donuts, and I will quietly sit in my car and reflect on the year about what went good, what went not so good, what I want to change. And 18 seconds later, after I've eaten those 4 donuts, no, it takes a little bit longer. But that's my thing. I like to do that. I just sit in my car quietly and eat donuts at 1 o'clock in the morning. And that's how I end my year. Come by, tell me what you did too. Leave me a comment on the underthecrossbones.com site and tell me what you did for New Year's, because I always think that's very cool. All right, so kids, we're gonna get into this interview. First up, Ray Stevenson, the famous Ray Stevenson from Black Sails. By the way, the Black Sails website, do not go to blacksails.com. Let's talk about that for a second. So if you type in blacksails.com into your browser, you will not find pirates. You will find boobies, all right? The actual website for the Starz show is starz.com/originals/Black Sails, because that's super easy to remember, right? Don't go to blacksails.com. It's a porn site. I mean, if you're into that, then definitely go to blacksails.com. But if you're looking for the TV show, starz.com/originals/Black Sails. So let's get into our interview with Ray Stevenson, a.k.a. Blackbeard.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Ray. How are you, man?
Excellent, thank you.
Good. Great to talk to you. I'm super excited to see what Blackbeard adds to Black Sails this season, because that's a character we've all been missing. So I'm really excited to see it. So the first thing I want to ask you, I know you're no stranger to swordplay or putting on giant beards.
Yeah.
Did you have to do? Have you had to do anything in Black Sails so far that you've never done as an actor before?
Fighting in soft sand in the summertime. Well, the soft sand was like wading through treacle, but to do something as an actor, my body was tattooed up. That's a first.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they put tattoos on my torso because I had a scene that's required that, which is that was very interesting. Obviously, a bit of research as well about tattoo periods and scrimshaw and stuff like this. So it's the first time I've had. I think it's the first time I've had tattoos applied.
Oh, okay. And so you're not you're not a naturally tattooed person then?
No, I'm a blank canvas.
That's great. So I think they got from the stills that we've seen, the production stills. It looks like they've got the look of the character pretty dead on from the old woodcuts in the books and things like that. What kind of background work did you do to familiarize yourself with Edward Teach as a person?
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. There's such a plethora and smorgasbord of information on this guy. And as you know, I mean, history is written by victors and sensationalists, so you got to take it all with a pinch of salt. But it was interesting to try and work your way through this to try and essentially get the essence of the man, because that's what we're doing. It's not a documentary on Teach, but we're bringing him into this black sales world,
right?
And knowing he's larger than life, and he's going to upset the apple cart. He really is going to throw the cat among the pigeons, as we say. And so, you want to bring the essence of this man into it, and yet but also maintain a feel that he is of this world. He's not detached. And I think that was the delight of going into it as an actor, was like saying, how can we get this to work? How can we bring all these elements together, historical elements and all this, and yet maintain that he's not. It's weird. He's kind of like he comes in from outside, and yet he's such an integral part of that world. He's undeniable part of the world, and yet he is separate enough to cause such a huge upset upon his arrival. So that's what we were essentially working towards.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating. And he theoretically would have some relationships with some of the characters anyway, since he sailed with Benjamin Hornigold and comes from Bristol, which is also where John Silver comes from theoretically in the book as well.
Mm. No, I think you're absolutely right. And one thing that he wants to do is he wants to explore the possibility of rekindling an old relationship with someone, because basically he's been away 8 years, and he's had like 8 different wives, 8 or 9 years. He's had 8 different. He's been looking for his son, an heir apparent. He's had nothing but girls. Uh-huh. So he's coming back to Nassau to try and rekindle an old relationship, to see if there is a chance of a sort of heir apparent, or somebody who can basically carry on his legacy and keep his legend alive and maintain his place in history. I mean, this was paramount importance to the people in these days.
Sure.
Was that they didn't disappear from the history books.
Right.
And so, especially with a man like that, a man like him. And so he comes back with that view to definitely try and rekindle something.
Okay. Oh, that sounds really interesting. Now, I recently spoke with the head of the Long John Silver Trust in Bristol, England, and one of his complaints was that actors never get the Bristol accent right. Did you try for it?
Oh, man, listen, of course I tried for it. I pushed and pushed and pushed. Unfortunately, we all suffer from the 1953 film, Why Are Pirates Funny? They just are.
Right.
Of course, I mean, I studied, you should let them know. I mean, I studied classical theatre at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School.
Sure, yeah.
So the Bristol accent was nothing. That was something I was really keen on pushing.
Okay.
And trying to get it there. But to all intents and purposes, the powers that be was saying we just can't, because it's just opens itself for ridicule. It's become a victim of its own sort of parody success. So they wouldn't. And this is, and when you're doing a dramatization like this, it's heartbreaking on one hand, but I can understand on another. And it would have been lovely. It would have added such a richness. And I know for a while, I said, listen, people are going to be saying, well, come on, why not?
Right.
But I think their voices would have been far, far, far outnumbered by the ones who, would have only heard, the coldness. They wouldn't have got the fact that the dialect or the accent was authentic. And it would have got in the way of, hopefully, seemingly in the way of the enjoyment of the show.
Right.
So the decisions were taken, and so, to all intents and purposes, you got to serve the piece you're in. But we tried. I wanted to. We went for it. But for the betterment of the whole thing, they decided not to.
That makes sense, and I'm glad that level of thought goes into the show, because it has been apparent that the accents aren't overwhelming or obvious. It doesn't. They're not played
exactly. They're all a bit diluted, and indeed in those days, it's like all westerns as well. I mean, the people that done it was once upon a time in the West where the first time ever people spoke with German accents and Flemish accents and Italian accents and Irish. There was no American accent because the American accent didn't exist.
Sure.
American dialect or accents are very, very young. It's a very young sort of language, or dialect rather. So, and yet people say, well, how's this a Western? It's all a bunch of Europeans. And you're like, well, mate, sorry.
That's true. Very true. So I know you're heading in to start filming season 4 pretty soon. Is there a part of the production that you're most looking forward to getting back to?
I've got no idea. I'm not looking forward to putting the beard on every day because that was like 2.5 hours of fun. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to getting in the mix. I mean, it's just, I haven't read anything yet, and I can't wait. Can't wait to see what comes in store.
Oh, great. So you don't even know what's going to happen in season 4 yet?
I don't even know what the hell's going to happen.
That's great. Now, you live on Ibiza, right? Are you still living there?
I do live in Ibiza, yeah.
I read in another interview that you did that you said it was a very tough island that you had to earn the privilege of living on. And I'm curious, what makes it challenging to live there? I thought that was an interesting statement.
Well, yeah, this island basically is just what I've seen. On this island, you can't wear a mask on this island. You can't pretend to be part of a set. You can't sort of this island has a tendency to hold the mirror up, and some people don't like what they see. It's it's a weird thing. The island doesn't give a damn if you've got €5 in the bank or 500 million in the bank. If you're a wanker, you're a wanker, and it's like unfortunately you can't wear the mask and hide, and it'll spit you out. But then again, people who move to New York think they're going to take the city over and it spits them out. So, but it's not just like saying, oh, yeah, it's so easy, we'll just move to Ibiza and no. But if you work at living on the island, the abundance it gives back is amazing. And I bring my family up there. So my 7-year-old speaks 4 languages, my 4-year-old speaks 3, my 1-year-old just starfish jumps around the place and having a great time. Oh, I'm being shouted at for the phone, actually.
Okay, all right.
I'll pass you back over, mate.
All right, thanks very much. Great to talk to you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, there it is, friends. That was my interview with Ray Stevenson, known as Blackbeard, on this season of Black Sails on the Starz network. Starts January 23rd, so make sure you go check that out. I know that was kind of short. It was only about 8 minutes or so. I only had 10 minutes to talk to the guy because he was doing a press junket type of thing. It was all by phone, but I felt very privileged to get in the loop on that type of thing, so it was very cool to him. And I'm sure we'll be talking about the show as it comes on later this month. Let's get into our second interview today. This interview is with Craig Buddy from the History of Pirates podcast. Check it out. So, Craig, tell me about your show. Tell me about what you do.
I'm currently doing a podcast on pirates. I decided to start at the beginning of piracy, looking at the ancient stuff. And my hope is to one day get to the future of piracy, where it's heading, the modern day stuff. And everything in between, all the golden age piracy, that seems to be where everybody's head's at.
And so you're actually going to take it through now in future. Are you going to be talking about either Somali pirates or just people stealing music?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of piracy, if you listen to the podcast, there's an episode that Cameron Riley talks about the new type of pirate, like the corporate pirate. So, I mean, if I ever get to the day where I've ran out of stuff to talk about pirates, I'm sure I could stretch the definition a little bit.
That's great. So now what, I mean, as far as I can tell in the podcasting industry right now, it's pretty much you and me on the pirate tip. And
from what I can tell, yeah, I haven't been able to find anything that hasn't maybe 1 or 2 episodes on, say, Captain Jack Sparrow, and then it just dies off.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of pod fade out there. And when I was looking around, when I thought about doing this, I was looking around and I had the, there was nothing out there, and then I put it on the back burner for a while, and then I went looking again to see a couple months later because I hadn't gotten around to it, and then I saw yours, and I was like, aha, somebody else had the same idea. What's cool
Great minds. That's
yeah,
awesome.
That's right. What's cool though is we take a drastically different take on the whole thing. I'm interviewing people, and you are doing basically a cool history podcast, which I really like the production on your shows, the sound effects and the music, and there's all sorts of cool little stuff crammed in there, and I think that's really cool. What what made you want to do a pirate podcast in the first place?
Oh, thanks. Well, the main thing, like you had me flattered there when you said the quality is good, because that's the main thing I'd like to have is a nice sounding podcast, or the whole thing would kind of just go down the drain pretty quick. So I just decided to do it because I'm just such a fan of history podcasts, and I've always wanted to do something where I could kind of chat about something I like, but everything was already done. So the more I was kind of looking, then I kind of clicked one day, oh, why don't I just listen to a pirate podcast? That should be pretty sweet. And there wasn't anything. And then I was like, that's really weird. And then after about 10 seconds, it was like, well, hold on, that was what you were waiting for. So then I just kept my mouth shut.
Right.
I just started like sneaking around, kind of being like, has anyone else done this? What's out there? I started kind of trying to get help from podcasters who have been around for a while that I've kind of look up to. And then that way I can say, like, am I about to go into a viper's nest, or like what's about to happen? And they were all pretty helpful, but yeah, it's definitely a lot more than what you first think it is.
Oh, it certainly is. And what are the podcasts that you were listening to that you were kind of drawing influence from?
Oh, well, I mean, the main one for history would be like the legendary The History of Rome.
Okay.
It's nicknamed Thor, and that's by Mike Duncan. And he came out with The History of Rome years ago. I remember listening to it when I was working at a factory here in Kitchener, Waterloo, for blackberries, for Rim. And I used to just sit there and listen to these podcasts, and he just covers the entire history of Rome. And it's hundreds of episodes. So that was sort of the main thing of, like, if you ever compared yourself to like a work of art, like that's what I always compared myself to, is like, if I can ever get to that sort of amazingness, that's what I would want to be able to be like, done and then just retire.
That's fantastic.
That's kind of my main goal.
That's cool. I haven't listened to a ton of history podcasts. I'm a big history guy too, but I tend to opt for books in that case. And I've tried to listen to Hardcore History and a couple other ones. And for some reason,
he's another guy up there too, right? Like, he's kind of one of those legendary, sort of the top of the line kind of podcasters. So if you liked him, you definitely like Mike Duncan, because they're kind of two different sides of a coin.
Yeah, and I couldn't, for some reason, I couldn't get into the history stuff as an audio form, and I don't know why. Maybe I need to try it again, but I've always been a book guy when it comes to history, but the podcasts that I listen to were all interviewee kind of stuff, and so that's why I ended up opting for what we're doing right now, which is cool. So where do you come from? How do you get into pirates? How does that all start?
Well, I was left on an island when I was 7, so I had to like join a group of pirates, and that way. No, I'm actually the opposite of a pirate, I guess. I'm actually taking. I go to school right now for supply chain and logistics, which is trying to make sure people don't steal your stuff while moving it around the world. But piracy has just always been something that's just so interesting. The history of almost every nation has something in there to do with piracy, and you can kind of, below the surface of almost any subject, piracy sort of pops up. So it's always just been almost in my peripheral. And then that way, when I started kind of doing more research on it and seeing all these very cool kind of little stories that make up a bigger story, and you see how they're all connected, that was always my reason why I like the history, because you could see what's happening today because of what happened before, Sure,
yeah. Do you remember where you first kind of discovered it?
Well, the very first pirate book I ever read, I actually worked at a bookstore for many years in Canada. So the books that would come in, I would have first dibs on. And then when they were really good, I would just order 30 or 40 of them and try to sell them. So like the ones like The Republic of Pirates by Colin Woodard, Under the Black Flag, like those two are ones by David Cordingley. Both of those are just really, really helpful. And I've sold those countless times. But it's like the little ones, like the General History of Pirates.
Sure.
That one, I think, that was, I thought when I started that was going to be my podcast. I thought, perfect, got a whole book, break it up, you know what I mean? Kind of do some more research. But then I ended up finding out further back. And then as you get back, you start realizing how many other pirates were around before these guys. So that kind of broaden my definition of where I was going to be going.
Yeah, and there's far less information out about a lot of the early stuff that you've been talking about. Where did you go to learn that kind of stuff?
There's actually an amazing article online that directed me to a bunch of really old links, and kind of I don't think you'd call them like reports, but almost like just random bits that were scanned in into kind of into a like a general I don't know, like a library somewhere. And some of the articles happened to do with pirates, and they kept talking about a book called Ancient Piracy, I think it was called. I think I actually have it still. What I ended up doing was finding that PDF and going through that, and that sort of pointed me in the right direction for a time and a place. And then from there, I was able to sort of jump into the middle of it and kind of explode it and try to work out like what's actually going on there, and then move to the next bit. So that book kind of helped guide me through the past, because yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there that even I didn't know about before that I had to go over. So I figured, why not?
Oh, that's great. I'll have to look for that myself. That sounds really interesting. What's been
I'll send you the link for sure?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks. What's been one of your favorite stories so far that you've told on the show that I mean, you haven't even gotten to the Golden Age stuff yet, so it's been all early stuff. But what's been one of your favorite early pirate stories that you've run across?
I think the one that everybody kept asking me to do, and right away they were like, just start at that story, was the Caesar and the pirates.
Oh, okay.
The fact that Caesar got to hang out with pirates for like almost a month, just over, and then came back and killed them all. but he paid the ransom, and he even warned them he'll come back. Like, there's so much in there that is just almost too good to be true, you know?
Well, yeah, go a little deeper into that story, because a lot of my listeners probably don't know it.
The main thing with Caesar is he was in the middle of traveling to a new location, and was captured by a bunch of Cilician pirates and taken to their base. And I think it was for about 38 days. Don't quote me, because I mean, I do a scripted podcast, so I'm always reading off of it. But the idea was, when he got there, he told them, okay, well, like, what do you need? Like, how much do you want? Let me go. And it is a usual practice in piracy to ransom people and sell them back. So he figured what was going to happen. And they said, okay, well, give me like 10 reels of, or not like 10 reels, but like, give me like, 10, you know what I mean? Like 10, I forget the actual name of what they ordered, but it was it's in silver. It's like a silver ingot or something.
Sure.
Reels of silver, I'll say. And he almost laughed at the idea that it was so low that he said, you shouldn't do that. You should actually make it a lot more. So right away they were on edge, being like, who's this guy? So once they ended up discussing and talking with him, they sort of started to almost do what he asked them to do without realizing it. So he would tell them to be quiet when he wants to read, and they would. He would tell them, it's time to go to sleep. I'm going to go to sleep, so you guys probably shouldn't be very loud anymore. So they'd go to sleep. And just the way he talked to them like they were really his servants, the arrogance of it. So the three leaders ended up kind of keeping him around as a sideshow, just being like, this guy is so weird. Like, we've never seen anybody so brash, so cocky, so arrogant. So anyone else in that situation, these guys would have killed. They would have just cut off their head or whatever and just left. But they figured they're going to get a good payment and they can kind of ignore him for a while. So they did. But the whole time he kept telling them, after I'm free, I'm going to come back and I'm going to have to kill you guys, because, you know, like, I have to. And they were just like, that's okay, that's cool, but we know you're not going to, because maybe not even going to pay us, or maybe you're just kind of threatening us. And then he showed up like about, I don't know, a month later after he was rescued, and he captured them all, collected his payment back that he had paid them, and took the three leaders and everyone else, and he led them over to a prison, put them in prison. And then he went over to the governor of Asia, I think it was. And the governors of the time, it was their duty to do something about piracy. And this guy was umming and ahhing, didn't really know what to do, didn't really know where he should sort of draw the line. And he also they were hinting that he was trying to get some of the money, all the money that Caesar captured. So eventually Caesar just threw up his hands, turned around, got the pirates out of the jail, and killed them all with crucifixions. And then the other source says that he killed the leaders by cutting their throats first and then put them on the crucifixion. But other people say they didn't, and he did it to all of them. So he cut their throats to make it a little easier for them. But I mean, that's really a relative. Like, I mean, it's still pretty bad, but
Yeah.
apparently he had a soft side for them just from hanging out with them for a bit. So it's either he cut up their throats, put them up, or just put them up and didn't cut their throats. But
That's so much great about that story. I love that he was like, really? That's all you want from me? Think a little bigger. As if they were like they were Dr. Evil with their pinky up to their mouth going, $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Where he put the pinky to their mouth and said,
right.
say $1 million. Trust me.
That's so great. I love that story. So, let's talk about podcasting a little bit, because I'm sure there's somebody listening to this who's going to want to start a third pirate podcast, and and we will have to capture and kill them. No,
maybe a little. We'll torture them. Maybe cut their throats.
Cut their throats. So you decided to do this podcast, and what was your intent in starting it? Why did you want to start the podcast? Was it just for fun or for business or what?
I just figured if I was going to read all this information all over again, kind of get a little deeper into it, and I was going to make notes and write stuff down as I usually do just to try to remember it. Mm-hmm. I might as well just go that next level, and instead of rambling to my girlfriend and my best friend and my parents and my brother and sisters or sister and stuff like that about pirates, I might as well do it to people who don't know me and may care a little bit more than my family and my friends who have heard it for years.
Oh, I can identify. Yeah, my girlfriend could give two craps about pirates. Yeah, she doesn't care at all. She's just like, when do you start making money from this thing? That's all she wants to know.
Yeah. Let me know then.
Well, that's very cool. And so what did you do after you started it? What did you do to go out and promote it? Because I know you've got some cross-promotion strategies with a lot of other history podcasts and things like that. Was that one of your main ways of getting the word out?
Yeah, I just figured the fact that I've been in the podcast, like I've been listening to podcasts for almost the whole time they've been around. I've heard what other people have done. I'd heard the good things, and I heard what they did was bad, and I heard the things that I didn't like they did. So I just thought if I was going to do a podcast, I'm not re-recording. So it's a one-time shot thing. So if I make mistakes, I'll just apologize. But I wanted to have almost a journey where I'm not very good at the beginning because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So you can kind of tell with some of the podcasts that you listen to that he's getting better. He's learning. He's doing this. He's doing that. The audio gets better, the sound and stuff. So I figured if I don't jump in the water now, I'm not going to. So that was the main goal, is just start doing it.
Right.
And then once I started doing it, I figured I would love to have the opportunity to talk to other people about my podcast on their shows. But moreover, I'd love to be able to pimp some of my favorite shows to the people that are listening about pirates that may not know about the history of Rome or Mysterious Universe or Matt's Today in History or whatever. So I thought if I can get them to come to my podcast, I'll be able to get more people to go to their podcast, and then that way they'll be able to hear all the cool stuff I've already listened to. And then if I'm lucky enough, if they like my podcast, maybe I get to do one back to them, and we can kind of trade hostages, I guess, or listeners, or I don't know, keeping the pirate analogy. So that was the main idea, is just sort of chat with other podcasters who knew I was doing it for a while, and figured see what they thought and get their ideas. So people like Cameron Riley, Ray Harris Jr., both of those guys do the Caesar podcast. Mm-hmm. And they're really well known in the podcast world, especially in the history genre. And then Matt Today in History is a really, really good podcast that's been around since, I would guess it's been like 50 or 100 podcasts were out. So like way back in the day. And it was like 5 to 10 minutes of him covering what happened in that day. And I chatted with him, and I chatted with a few other new and upcoming podcasters that were starting as well, and sort of see where they are in the field, and just sort of try to get as much information as I can, so I don't step on as many landmines.
Yeah, because there's always landmines in anything new that you get into. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I'm still in 10 already.
yeah, right. But yeah, that's totally the way to do it. I'm glad to hear that you just kind of jumped in and started doing it, because you end up imitating people at the beginning, and I can even hear that in myself. I'm sure you're imitating, unconsciously at least, a lot of the history podcast guys. I imitate people in my head. I can hear Mark Maron pop out of my mouth way more often than I'd like him to.
Yeah.
But
if I don't quote a Simpson episode at least once a podcast, then yeah, I'm doing something wrong, because
Right.
my entire life is based on Simpson quotes.
Yeah. there are worse Bibles to follow, that's for sure. No, that's really cool, because I've done the same thing with every art form that I've undertaken, from comedy, singing, guitar playing. I always mimic somebody first until I kind of get a handle of my own style. And
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I always, there's somebody in my head doing the job, and then I just do what they do until I've figured out how to do it. And I think I'm still in that stage, definitely here with the podcasting, but
I
it's
think you're
starting to come
learning
together.
really well. Like, I've liked all your episodes so far of
thanks.
your podcast. So I just say keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
Yeah. So is I have to ask now, is speaking of, is Craig Buddy your actual name, or are you lying to us all?
Oh, it's all fake.
Okay.
I figured if I was a pirate, I needed a pirate name and a pseudonym or something, and that way, if people hated my podcast, they couldn't just find me on Facebook and just be like, "You suck."
There you go.
And see like pictures of my cats and stuff. So I figured if I did a pseudonym or like a nickname, it would be easier to connect the real guy from the fake guy. But well, not the fake guy, but like the guy that's chatting about pirates for 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is. I just mainly wanted to have that break between the two. So Buddy was just something my friends used to call me. It was like Craig Buddy, Justin Buddy. And it just stuck where everyone kept calling me Craig Buddy. And that Buddy sort of became a last name. And then it just became CB. And then that just sort of floated with me through high school and college. So I figured if I was going to do a podcast, Captain Craig Buddy sounds like a nice pirate.
There, yes, that is the probably most congenial pirate name ever. Yeah.
Captain Good Guy. Yeah, exactly.
Great, man. So what are the future plans for the podcast? Where do you want to see it go?
Well, we need a little island. Once we take that over, we'll build fortifications and defenses. I really just, I don't know if you've noticed, I've actually slowed down a little bit in the podcast just because of my exams and school and stuff. But I'm trying right now to get over the Viking era. So I've just been doing a lot of research on the Vikings and looking at them as pirates, because the big question there, which again, another landmine I stood onto, is a Viking a pirate, you know? So
okay.
I thought, yeah, sure. Okay. Next question. And then all of a sudden, like hell and rainfire started like falling on me on Facebook and Twitter, and people were saying, no, it's deeper than that. Think like, what about this? What about that? So the more I discuss with people on Facebook, there's a pirate community actually, a Facebook pirate community, and every day they drop so much knowledge there that I can just discuss it with them and get ideas. So I've actually switched from thinking Vikings were pirates to really Vikings weren't pirates. They've just sort of been labeled as the same to maybe get another chapter in a book or maybe make history easier.
I see.
But other than the fact that they use boats and they raided, everything else is separate. You know what I mean? Like the Vikings were legally allowed to do it because it was their culture. That's what they were going out to do. They were going to capture booty and capture land and eventually settle. But pirates were, in definition, like illegal. Like they're not supposed to be there. They're enemies of all mankind. So there were little differences there that started to creep up. So that's just what I've been trying to get through. But where it goes after that, hopefully we just dive right into the what they're called the Sea Dogs, or almost like the early Buccaneers right before those guys, and then get to the Buccaneers and the Golden Age guys. But it's definitely going to be a long journey.
Yeah, well, that's good. A short journey means a short podcast series. So
Yeah, exactly.
You want it to be a long journey.
And I'm learning a lot, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's very cool. Now with the Vikings, could they be more aligned with the idea of privateers then instead of pirates?
Yeah, I mean, you could see them as, I guess, a privateer in the fact that they're working for a government, but um, they may be separated in the fact that like the Vikings were um, there was no law against what they were doing because they were just leaving their land and attacking someone who was their enemy. So to them, it was just like a Tuesday. So I mean, like there was really no difference in what they were doing. It when like if you're a privateer, like yeah, you got to follow the rules and you got to do a bunch of stuff there. But even with a pirate, you're kind of skirting the law between pirate and privateer. So at least when the Vikings were doing it, like they didn't have any guilty consciences, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, that's sort of the case through the history of all of the whole thing, is that the lines were always a little blurry, especially in the Golden Age stuff, which is kind of where my knowledge lies. But how do you deal in your stories and your research? How do you deal with that fuzzy line? And are you addressing the legal side of it as well?
As in like stealing music and stuff and
No,
and
no,
like
no, no. I
that kind
meant
of
no.
piracy?
I mean, as far as like if you're looking at somebody like Henry Morgan or something like that, or which I assume you eventually will be.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Will you be looking? I mean, will you be looking at that sort of fuzzy legal line that he was treading the entire time, where to one country he's a pirate, to another country he's a privateer?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I didn't understand there. I think I would definitely try to understand from more point of view. So from the Spanish, he's a pirate. That's just the way it is. But to the British, he's just a really good privateer.
Right.
So it all depends on like who you're investing in, I guess, or whose team you're on. But that again, like because I'm not a historian, I have to be careful like going too deep into it because I'm sure some like pirate lawyer will jump on me or something. Um, so I think I will definitely try to cover that, but I don't want to go too deep into the legal stuff because again, I wouldn't know anything. So if I can give a story or give an idea, then totally. But if I feel like it goes too far off the narrative, then I'll just claim he was a privateer and keep going because I'm English. So
There you go. Right. Yeah. Well, they say history is written by the victors, and now it's being written by a guy from Toronto. So
there you go.
it's completely okay. Completely okay. Well, Craig, this has been super fun, man. Is there anything else you want to tell my audience before we wrap it up here?
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. I'm a big fan of your podcast, and I'm really glad we were able to
Thanks.
connect. I'm gonna have to do an intro for you, and I'll have to get you to do one for me as well.
For sure.
That way we can kind of connect our crews, maybe make a bigger crew.
There you go.
And I think the main thing is just to keep listening. If you want to check out the podcast, it's the History of Pirates podcast. You can go to the iTunes. You can find it pretty much everywhere. But if you have any questions, you can always check out the podcast webpage, historyofpiratspodcast.com, or just find me on Facebook under Craig Buddy.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure to link all that stuff up in the show notes and have all that stuff there. Craig, like I said, this has been super fun, man. I'm glad we got a chance to talk.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, brother. Great to meet you.
You too. I'll talk to you again soon.
All right, later, bro.
All right, bye. And that, my friends, is my interview with the incomparable Craig Buddy. If you want to hear his podcast, go to historyofpiratspodcast.com and check it out. If you like pirates, if you like history, go ahead. It's a history of pirates. It's so great. And it's a good show. Well produced. I love it. It's fantastic. Go check it out. Pick it up on your iTunes, whichever way you like to do that. We're gonna play some comedy, some music, just like always today. And actually, I actually get to go to some concerts this week, because I don't have any gigs of my own, which is rare. And so this week I'm going to see two artists who are about as far apart in the musical spectrum as you could possibly get. Thursday night, I'm going to see Queensryche. Yeah, way back, right? Because I loved Operation Mindcrime. It's one of my favorite albums ever, and I never saw them back in the day. And now they've got a new singer. Jeff Tate is out, but it's fine because the new guy they've got is actually less irritating to listen to for long periods. So I think that's going to be a fun show. And then Friday night, I'm going to see Lyrics Born, who, if you're not into West Coast hip hop, you might not be familiar with. But Lyrics Born is super awesome, and he's the greatest half Asian rapper of all time. It's great. He uses a full backing band, super funky, super fun. It's going to be, I can't wait. Anyway, not playing either of them on the show for you today because I can't. Instead, we got comedy today from Jason Resler, who you're going to dig. Jason is universally revered here on the West Coast and throughout the country. You can find his website at pitchingpunchlines.com because he's a sporty guy. And today he's going to tell you about why you should play catch with your kids. It's a great bit. You're going to dig it. And then after that, we are going to hear a song from an artist called Brad Sucks. I know, weird name. The guy's name is actually Brad Turcotte, and he performs and writes under the artist name Brad Sucks, which you can find at bradsucks.net. And we're going to hear his song called Certain Death. All right, here we go. Jason Resler and Brad Sucks.
High deductible, high copay kind of Kaiser. You gotta raise your kids differently when you got high deductible, high copay kind of Kaiser. You can't just say, go on outside and play. You gotta add on and be careful. When he was little, I'd go out in the backyard. He'd just be being a kid, playing with the kids on the street. You know, I'd go out in our backyard and be, Nathan, what are you doing climbing up in a tree? Get down out of the tree, all right, buddy? We don't climb trees, okay? And he's like, well, why come Andrew gets to climb a tree? Because Andrew's dad works for the state. So get down out of the tree, get down out of it, real careful, one leg at a time. Get down out of the tree, that's it. And get down and go play like that over there on their property. Go fall down and break your arm across the street. Don't forget to check the medicine cabinet for the orange bottles with the typing on the side. Other dads would be out at the Little League Park every Saturday morning arguing for their kid with the coach. Hey, let my boy get a couple innings at shortstop. Let my kid get a chance to pitch. I'd be like, look, stick my boy out in right field for a couple innings. Let's call it an afternoon, all right? I don't need any unexpected expenses biting me in the asses. And I'll tell you another thing, Coach. Stop asking them to dive and slide all the time. Them laundry quarters ain't cheap, jackass. Thanks for volunteering. Play catch with your kids, though. It's baseball season's finally here next week. Yeah, play catch with your kids, no matter what your sport is. It's taking something and giving it back, and taking it away and then giving it back. That's what raising kids is about. Look, here's what you do if you don't understand how important it is to play catch with your kids. Go out into the yard, play catch with them, then go back into your couch and go on ahead and watch 2 movies. Watch the movies Field of Dreams and Children of the Corn back to back. Yeah, it's important to play catch with the kids, man. You don't want to get caught off guard. Malachi throws a hell of a cutter! I'll take that fat baseball goal sitting there.
Okay, so you're feeling all alone. I heard it on the radio, in a broadcast from the sky. And someday I'm gonna
That's our show for today, friends. Thank you for listening to Under the Crossbones. Again, you can find all the show notes and links and all that kind of good stuff at underthecrossbones.com/022. Hit the support page, /support if you want to donate, or click the Amazon banner or stuff like that. And if you want that ebook, the Alexander X. Quemelin ebook, text your pirate. Text your pirate. If you've got a pirate on speed dial, I want to know it. You probably have lots of them. Use your phone and text the word pirate space your email address to 94253. And that will do it. Friends, we'll hear it again next week. Talk to you then.